Welcome again, dear students. Myself, Dr. Kaleem Ahmed, Assistant Professor, Department of Wildlife Sciences, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. As in previous 2 to 3 lectures, we discussed the 34 biodiversity hotspots. Now, in today's lecture, we will continue to discuss the remaining 2 biodiversity hotspots. These biodiversity hotspots that are there, we can say in India, the Himalayas and the Western Ghats. Let's start from Himalayas. Actually, it's the youngest and highest mountain chain on the earth. The Himalayas stretches across northern Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, the northwestern and the northeastern states of the India, adjoining Myanmar and the southwest China border in the east. The hotspot sports globally significant population of several large mammals, including the endangered tiger and the endangered Asian elephant, along with smaller mammals and birds such as red panda and white-winged duck. The rugged and largely inaccessible landscape of the Himalayas make biological surveys in the hotspot very difficult. Significant areas of intact forest are little or entirely unexplored. Thus, many floral and faunal taxonomic groups are understudied, and the true extent of the biodiversity is undoubtedly underestimated. Many unique and diverse human groups are also found in these biodiversity hotspots. Nepal accounts around more than 27 ethnic groups, while Bhutan has 3 main ethnic groups. And if we talk about the India, the north east part of the India has more than 500 distinct ethnic groups. Biogeographically, the Himalayan mountain range straddles a transition zone between the Palearctic and the Indo-Malayan reliefs. Species from both are represented in this biodiversity hotspot. In addition, geological, climatic, and altitudinal variations in the region, as well as topographic complexity, contribute to the biological diversity of the mountain along their east, west, and north-south axis. There are about 10,000 estimated species of plant in these Himalayas biodiversity hotspots, of which 3,160 are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. The largest family of flowering plants in the biodiversity hotspot is Orchidaceae with more than 750 species. A zone of permanent ice and rock begins at about 5,500 to 6,000 meters. In spite of these harsh conditions, there are records of vascular plants occurring at some of the highest elevation on the earth. Nearly 980 bird species have been recorded in this biodiversity hotspot, and about only 5 are endemic. If we talk about the avian flagship species, include the endangered white-winged duck, critically endangered white-bellied heron, and the critically endangered Bengal florica. If we talk about the mammals, there are about 300 mammal species have been recorded in the Himalayan biodiversity hotspots, including a dozen of which are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. The endangered golden langur and the critically endangered pygmy hawk among some of the notable species in this biodiversity hotspot. The alluvial grasslands actually sport some of the highest densities of the endangered tiger in the world, while the Brahmaputra and the Ganges rivers that flow along the foothills also sport globally important population of endangered South Asian river dolphin. Some of the world last remaining population of endangered wild water buffalo and swamp deer are restricted to protected areas in southern Nepal and India. Although there has been little systematic study of reptiles and amphibians in the Himalaya biodiversity hotspot, but at least 175 reptile species have been documented in this biodiversity hotspot till date, of which nearly 50 are endemic. If we talk about amphibians, there are about 105 species known to occur in these biodiversity hotspots, of which more than 40 are endemic. And most of these species are frogs and toads. Some of the threats that actually faced by these Himalayas biodiversity hotspot, we can say that despite their apparent remoteness and inaccessibility, the Himalayas have been have not been spared human-induced biodiversity loss. People have lived in the mountains of Himalayas for thousands of years, but in recent decades, greater access to the global market has increased the demand for natural resources in the area. As a result, population are growing in the most productive ecosystems, which are also some of the richest area in terms of biodiversity. Today, remaining natural habitat in the Himalayas is patchy. The steadily increasing population in the hotspot has led to extensive clearing of forest and grasslands for cultivation and widespread logging. Large areas of remaining habitat in the hotspots are highly degraded. Overgrazing by domestic livestock, including cattle and domesticated yak, is widespread in the lowland and alpine ecosystems. The flora of fragile alpine meadows has been overexploited for traditional medicines. The conversion of forest and grassland for agriculture and settlements has led to large scale deforestation and habitat fragmentation in Nepal and in the Indian state of Sikkim, Darjeeling, and Assam. Fuel wood collection and non-timber forest product extractions, both for domesticated consumption and export, has inflicted severe damage to some forest ecosystem in this biodiversity hotspot. Unplanned and poorly managed tourism has also led to environmental degradation. Other threats to biodiversity and forest integrity include mining, construction of roads, large dams, and pollution from the agrochemicals. The other biodiversity hotspots which are there in India is Western Ghats. The Western Ghats region of India is centered on a range of mountains that runs along the west coast. Although the area accounts for less than 6% of the national land area, it contains more than 30% of all plant, fish, herpetofauna, bird, and mammal species found in the country. Due to varying effects of early monsoon and high mountain range, this hotspot is home to a rich endemic assemblage of plants, reptiles, and amphibians. Some of the iconic mammal species, the endangered Asian elephant and endangered tiger among them, are also found in this biodiversity hotspot. In addition to rich biodiversity, the Western Ghats are home to diverse social, religious, and linguistic groups. The high cultural diversity of rituals, customs, and lifestyles has led to the establishment of several religious institutions that actually strongly influence public opinions and the political decision making process. The presence of hundreds of the sacred groves and sacred landscapes in the region bears testimony to society commitment to the conservation. Many species of higher plants and vertebrates are still being, I can say, discovered in these biodiversity hotspots. Further, I can say the region is center of diversity for some of the world most economically significant plants such as mango, banana, black pepper, and nutmeg. It is estimated there are 4,000 species of flowering plants known from the Western Ghats, and 15,000, nearly about 38% of these are endemic. The Nilgiri Mountains are one of the most important center of speciation for flowering plants in the Western Ghats, with I can say 82 species restricted to this particular area alone. A total of 508 bird species have been recorded in this region, including 324 resident species, that is around, I can say, 64%. This figure also include 144 species of aquatic birds, many of them from the, we can say, western coastline. The central parts of the regions harbor the highest diversity of bird species. Wide-ranging and flagship mammal species such as tiger and elephant have attracted significant conservation efforts, both by the Indian government as well as by several conservation non-governmental organizations. But relatively little is known about the distribution and conservation status of the smaller mammals, particularly small carnivores as well as rodents. Approximately 157 species of reptiles are reported from the Western Ghats. Of these, nearly 50% are endemic. Among the different habitats of Western Ghats, the evergreen forest alone are known to support approximately 130 species of reptiles. Approximately 126 species of amphibians from 24 genera are known from the region, with new species actually frequently added. The Western Ghats has the highest level of, we can say, amphibians endemism in India. Similar to other biodiversity hotspots, Western Ghats also face lot of threats. Let's discuss one by one. Livestock grazing. The livestock grazing within and bordering protected areas by high density of livestock is a serious problem because it causes habitat degradation, human wildlife conflict. As Western Ghats exist with a intensely human dominant landscape, human wildlife conflicts are actually common. Very high human population densities in several parts of the hotspots further increase the intensity of conflict. Extraction of forest products, human communities living within and adjacent to protected areas in the Western Ghats hotspot are frequently dependent on the extraction of non-timber forest products to meet a diversity of substance and commercial need. Fuel wood and fodder extraction. The extraction of fuel wood and fodder constitute a significant and pervasive consumptive use within the Western Ghats. Overall, extraction of wood from both live and dead plants represent a serious threat, negatively affecting, we can say, on canopy gaps, regeneration, stand density, basal area, and population structure. Agro system, I can say, in the Western Ghats are today dominated by tea, coffee, rubber, and monocultures of various species, including the recently introduced oil palm. Large-scale planting of coffee in Western Ghats began actually in 1854. Over the years, plantation of cash crops have displaced extensive patches of natural forests throughout the Western Ghats and are frequently associated with encroachment of surrounding forest areas. There are certain priorities that has been recommended for the conservation of this biodiversity hotspot by Conservation International, and we will discuss some of these. Promote actually a partnership to identify, evaluate, and advocate for sustainable mechanisms that incorporate critical links, therefore biological corridors, into the protected areas network in the Periyar Agastyamalai, Mysore Nilgiri, and Malnad Kodmugai corridors. Another is support civil society to establish partnership with the state agencies to implement science-based management and conservation of priority sites in the Mysore Nilgiri corridor. Monitor and assess the conservation status of globally threatened species with the emphasis on lesser known organisms such as reptile and fishes. Another recommendation or priorities of Conservation International is to support efforts to conserve critically endangered and endangered species through the creation of species recovery and management plans. Another is evaluate the existing protected area network for educate globally threatened species representation and assess effectiveness of protected areas in biodiversity conservation. Another is build a broad constituency of civil society groups working actually across institutional and political boundaries toward achieving the shared conservation goals described in the ecosystem profile. This is all about biodiversity hotspots within and outside India. With this, we end today's lecture, and in the next lecture, we will discuss some new topic. Thank you.